Hello everyone and welcome back to another Helm to Tower video. Season of the Wish has just kicked off and I wanted to give you an overview of how the new activities work. There's two main activities you're going to be introduced to. One will be during the main story quest of this first week. The other one will be available to you once you complete that main story quest. That's because it kind of plays into the storyline of the season. The first activity is called Rivens Lair. This is a 3-player match-made low-level activity that will take you through these various corridors with all kinds of traps like spike traps and other things, and you'll have to navigate this area to find these 3 plates that you need to activate. Once you do so, this will open up a portal that you can take into the first major encounter. Now, I think these encounters will change week to week. That's at least usually how these activities go, so we'll have to wait and see if the next week has different encounters. But from the trailers and things, it definitely seems like there will be different bosses and things you'll take on in this activity, but it is pretty straightforward if you've played Destiny before, as this first week's encounter is just taking out Vex enemies who will drop those arc craniums, which you'll have to grab and use to destroy the little Vex cubes that are holding this taken enemy in a cage. Once you do that, the taken enemy will be let out. You defeat the taken enemy. That lets you proceed on through the portal and complete that activity. Once you do that, you'll once again be in a similar area with plates and different traps that you'll have to navigate, and then you will then get to a final encounter, which is similar and you're taking on Vex enemies. And then you'll just use the craniums again to take down the boss's immunity shield and then take the boss out once you take out the shield with the craniums. Once you do that, you're done, and that's the Rivens Lair activity. It's pretty straightforward, and it's mainly there just to kind of teach you the basics of this later game activity that'll then open up, which is called the Coil. This you can basically look as a harder version of the Rivens Lair activity, but with a lot more going on, a lot more areas, and a lot more encounters to go through. The main thing to know is when you start the activity, you'll be back in front of Riven, or the Spirit of Riven, and she will basically be a vendor for this activity. You'll notice also there's this little vase on the ground in front of her. When you shoot that, a bunch of motes come flying out of that vase. Don't worry, you're not playing Gambit. This is just the currency that you will acquire when playing this activity, and it only is used inside of this activity. You can use this currency to buy various kinds of buffs from Riven. These seem completely random. Some of the ones I got were like buffing void damage or buffing solar damage. I also got things like making it so bosses did less damage to me. A lot of various buffs we've seen in previous Destiny things as well, so they're pretty standard, but it seems like they're just randomly given to you for purchase at Riven with this currency you will find in the activity. These vases can be strewn throughout the activity. They're mainly in these corridors that are in between the major activities. You'll find them all over the place. Collecting these gives you points that'll go towards your high score. The higher score, when you get that, will unlock these hidden doors in the area, which will have chests in them for more rewards. That's definitely a big thing with this activity that I really like, because there's tons and tons of rewards if you're able to get into these later tiers. So each tier is essentially a run of that Rivens Lair activity. Basically, you'll have 2 major encounters, and they're split between these randomized areas filled with traps that you need to navigate and find those plates to stand on. Finding all 3 of the plates will then open up the portal and send you into an encounter. These encounters are also kind of randomly picked from a handful of different encounters. Again, the ones that I mentioned in Rivens Lair are a part of these, but there's also completely new ones where I was taking on a big Hive Knight with stasis damage and had to go into these light pools to get rid of pervading darkness debuffs while I was fighting the boss. There's also a similar fight with a big ogre shot like blast that would kind of stun you and stun lock you in the area. So there's different encounters, but they still have like similar negative effects. I'm sure there will be more encounters added week over week, but for now, that's what you're looking out for. And that's basically a tier of the Coil encounter. There'll be 2 of these trap areas where you need to find the plates and 2 major combat encounters. This will send you back to Riven, who will give you a chest, but from here you can actually keep playing the activity and go to the next tier up, which increases the enemy difficulties, but also gives you access to the better buffs you can buy from Riven with that currency you've been collecting. You can keep ramping up the difficulties as you take on more and more tiers, all the way up to tier 4, which will also unlock the best buffs from Riven, but also get you the best rewards when you complete the activity. Keep in mind that you do have a limited lives in this Coil activity. I believe you start with 21 lives total. These only persist for all 4 tiers. You don't get more lives as you complete the tiers. The only way to get more lives is if you spend some of that currency you've been earning at Riven for extra lives. So this could mean you're giving up a potential really powerful buff for this tier of the run for some extra lives if your teammates are dying too much. If you do run out of lives, you will be kicked to orbit, so keep that in mind. Overall, I would recommend maybe grouping up with 2 of your buddies, or if you can find an LFG team to get through this encounter if you do want to get all those tiers. Like I said, I did get pretty lucky with the 2 randoms I came in with, so it is possible, but I wouldn't always bank on it, especially as you get later in the season and less people are playing. I definitely recommend just trying to group up with people if you want to get all of the tiers done and get the best rewards. It definitely seems like a really good place to farm some Ascendant alloys, because boy, let me tell you, I completed that tier 4 and I think I got legitimately like 4 or 5 different Ascendant alloys from the completion of this activity. I'll show it here. It's pretty wild. I don't know if this is like a weekly thing or if there's some other reasons why this gave me so much at the end here, but it was pretty awesome. Definitely seems like this has a lot of potential to be a good place to farm these alloys finally in the game, so it's really good to see. I definitely hope this wasn't just some weird off chance and this is just a regular thing. It makes it feel worthwhile to do all of these higher tiers or get a group together to farm this activity to get all of those Ascendant alloys at the end. But that's a look here in week 1 of Season of the Wish at these 2 activities. I'm sure they will get some other encounters added later on, or maybe different changes later as we get into the season. That's usually how these activities go. We'll just have to wait and see how those pan out. I'm sure we'll talk more about that kind of stuff in later episodes of the Helm to Tower podcast. Feel free to tune in to those episodes later in the coming weeks if any more changes arise. But for now, thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.